The survey crew carefully surveyed.
Morning, everyone. I'm Samantha Kasami, and you're joining us here today at a few minutes past 9 at the EACOP National Content Supplier Development Workshop. I'm joined by Martin Tiffin, the EACOP Managing Director, who's going to start with a brief presentation on the project and the EACOP company.
Okay, good morning, Samantha, and thank you for that. So, first of all, I guess I should start by explaining what EACOP is. So, EACOP itself stands for East Africa Crude Oil Pipeline, and that represents a pipeline system that runs 1,443 kilometers from Kabale in Uganda to Tanga in Tanzania. So it's running more or less southwards through Uganda down to the border, around the corner around Lake Victoria, and then across Tanzania till it reaches the Indian Ocean coast. And I'd say the purpose of EACOP, I think yesterday there was a day on the Telenga national content. The purpose of EACOP is simply to transport oil from where it is, where it's going to be developed in the Lake Albert region by the two projects, Telenga and Kingfisher, and to transport that oil to the world markets, basically, where it can be consumed, lifted by tankers and taken to refineries around the Indian Ocean perimeter. So the pipeline itself is a 24-inch pipeline in diameter. So if I represent that, it's a line something like that in diameter. The pipeline will be buried, and in order to build it, we require to access a 30-meter wide strip of land running all the way from Kabale to Tanga, and that is the process that is often in the newspapers, but is well underway now, which is the land acquisition process in order to be able to physically access the land prior to installing the pipeline. The pipeline itself, the oil requires to be pumped, so the pipeline will be buried under the ground, but there's 6 pumping stations, one at Kabale and then one down near the border in Uganda, so 2 pumping stations Uganda, and then 4 pumping stations in Tanzania, and those pumping stations will boost the pressure of the oil and send it on to the next pumping station, and in that way the oil will move down the pipeline. We have the 2 projects, Telenga plus Kingfisher together, will produce something like 230,000 barrels a day of oil, and just to give the viewers an idea of what that means, that means for the oil, a barrel produced will take something like 2 weeks to move through the pipeline system and to arrive in Tanga in the terminal there, and then be put into ships.
And the start of the pipeline is Kabale in Uganda and ending in Tanga.
That's correct. Okay. Yeah. So then the other meaning for us, and we kind of mix the 2 meanings. So EACOP, East African Crude Oil Pipeline System, is this physical system, and the next 3.5 years are going to be devoted to the construction of that physical system, and we'll come on to the contractors and the opportunities that will generate. But the other thing that EACOP is it's also a company. So we have registered the company actually in the UK. We opened branches in Uganda and Tanzania. The company itself is tax resident in Uganda, and it will have shareholders like any company.
Yes.
But it will have only a single purpose, and that single purpose will be to build, finance and operate to transport oil, and in return it will be paid a tariff. So the 4 shareholders are the Ugandan National Oil Company, UNOC, the Tanzanian Petroleum Development Corporation, TPDC, Total Energies with 62%, the largest shareholder, and CNOOC, who are the 4th shareholder. So you see that the 3 upstream entities, who are Total Energies, CNOOC, and UNOC, are represented as shareholders in the pipeline, together with TPDC as being 80% of the pipeline is physically in Tanzania in terms of length.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so for everyone at home, that's Total Energies at 62%, UNOC at 15%, TPDC at 15%, and CNOOC at 8%.
That's correct.
Okay, and those are the shareholders of the pipeline company, EACOP?
Yeah, so EACOP in a way EACOP is a private company with these shareholders. We have a shareholder agreement which governs how those shareholders interact and how the management of the company, of which I will be the managing director, how the management of the company will act in terms of autonomy, but also what decisions need to be brought to the board and to the shareholders. Yeah. So all of that is in place now. We had Sinuk sign those agreements just on the 4th of November, so just a little while ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago. And there's still, just so we're clear, there's still 1 or 2 final steps to be put into place. I'd say the most important of which is the EACOP Act, which is currently before the Ugandan Parliament. So in order for the pipeline to have a legal and commercial framework which will allow us to invest almost $4 billion that's required to build this pipeline. In order to have in place the legal and commercial framework, we have what's called host government agreements between EACOP and the government of Uganda and between EACOP and the government of Tanzania. And those agreements require also some legislation in order to come into full force and effect. So that process the parliamentary process is now complete in Tanzania, is coming to a conclusion here in Uganda. And then those legislations will, I hope, quickly pass to presidential assent and then to be gazetted and become law. Yes. And that'll be like the trigger point for the launching of the main activities of EACOP.
And that's an important element of EACOP, is that it's cross-border. We're trying to do a project across 2 countries in a harmonized fashion, and on top of that, we have external financing. Yeah.
So it's got many sort of moving pieces to it, but it's an important point that you make. So if I say EACOP is almost $4 billion of investment to build it, roughly 20% of that will be the Ugandan section. We have 297 kilometers of EACOP in Uganda, and the remaining length, more than 1,100 kilometers, is in Tanzania. So you can see just by length, and pipelines are a linear project, it costs roughly the same amount per kilometer to lay it, together with the terminal infrastructure, which is probably the biggest surface infrastructure at Tanga, that something like physically 80% of the project is in Tanzania. And so we have 1 project, but across 2 countries. So when we talk even about the subject of today, national content, in Tanzania, they call it local content. Yeah. But they also have, in Tanzania, have high expectations, and which we plan to meet. Yes. But also for to develop their own goods and services, able to benefit from and supply EACOP with what it requires, and similarly in Uganda.
Exactly. It's an important split to keep in mind. 20% in Uganda and 80% in Tanzania of the pipeline.
Yeah. So we've had a long engagement with the authorities here, and also with the national oil company as our partner. So we're well aware, both I'd say of the regulations and the framework that's been established in Uganda for national content, and we very much look forward to honouring and respecting that. And it's been an important part of I'd say that how we integrate those regulations into our call for tender processes and contract award and evaluations has been an important subject for the past 2 to 3 years. We've been, I'd say, putting the building blocks in place contractually, and now, starting in 2022, early 2022, we're going to move into an action phase. So that'll start in Uganda with the land acquisition, which will, I think, be the most visible phase. And we have something like 300 houses to build. So we'll start with, because we need to physically resettle some of the people along the pipeline route. So that'll be I think, on the ground, the main visible activity in Uganda in calendar year 22. And in parallel with that, we'll be procuring the line pipe, and in Tanzania, establishing the plant that's going to coat the pipe with an insulation. That'll be also happening in 2022, but that'll be activity mainly in Tanzania. So we're just about to start the civil works for this coating plant in Nzega in Tanzania as we speak. And then in 23, we'll start the physical construction on the ground, and that'll mean, you saw the little sequence at the beginning of the video there, that'll mean starting to open the land, open the ground, dig a trench, weld the pipeline together, and then lower that pipeline into the trench.
I think that's another interesting difference with the Telenga and Kingfisher projects is the contract structure, because the pipeline is a linear project. So unlike Telenga and Kingfisher, it's not just in one area. So for that reason, there is a different contracting strategy. If you can explain a bit more.
So very briefly, there's sort of three elements to the contract strategy, the contract mosaic, and I think this will be explained in more detail later. But first of all, we have to have an engineering, procurement, and construction management support. It's what we call an EPCM contract, and that's with Worley, who are based in London, have experience on similar pipelines, or pipelines of similar length and complexity elsewhere in the world, and we're looking to benefit from that experience and use it on this project. So Worley are what we call the EPCM contractor, but again, their activities in early days will concentrate on engineering, making sure that we have the detailed design that we require in order for the construction contractors later to lay it. Then we have a second set of contracts around procurement. So there's a bunch of stuff we need to, the most important thing being, of course, the pipe, but a bunch of stuff that requires to be procured for the project, or everything that requires to be procured for the project. So if I just take the pipeline itself, we are required to purchase 1,500 kilometers of 24-inch line pipe. That's going to be in 18-meter lengths. So we had quite lengthy studies as to whether the pipe should be 18 meters or 12 meters. 12 meters would be, I'd say, the more conventional length. 18 meters is a little longer. But the big benefit of 18 meters is that there's less welding to do. You have less joints, 50% less joints. And therefore, in terms of construction efficiency, that even if it makes the logistics, because you have over length, not over width, but over length loads, a little more complicated, it's a good win for the project. So we'll be procuring roughly 270,000 tons of steel pipe, and we've got 4 or 5 steel mills around the world lined up to do that. We'll be calling for final prices very shortly, and when we have those prices, we'll place the offer. But just to give you an order of magnitude, it requires we require something like 100 kilometers a month of pipeline to be manufactured every month for 16 months. So there are not too many plants in the world. In fact, there's not any single plant in the world capable of doing that. So we'll probably have 2 or 3 steel mills providing us with the line pipe, and then delivering, let's say after a 6-month delay, or 6 months after we first place the order, that pipe will then start to have to cross the ocean from wherever it's being manufactured, come into the port of Dar, be offloaded in Dar, be put onto trucks, and taken to the coating yard in Tanzania, in Nzega, and there, like I say, be insulated, and then we need to build a stock of insulated pipe, and then we'll then move that insulated pipe to what we call MCPYs, which are main camp and piping yards. So we have 16 of those along the pipeline route, 4 in Uganda and 12 in Tanzania, and we'll start to stock line pipe there. So that'll be our procurement activity, or procurement and coating activity. And then the sort of, I think the piece that people understand best will be then the construction.
Exactly.
When bulldozers and diggers and excavators will start to open up the right of way for the pipeline, and start then to assemble. First of all, you lay the pipe out, then you weld it, then you lower it in, and you build the pipe like that, and then you backfill. So in fact, we're not going to have a ditch of 1,500 kilometers open the whole time. It will be, and that process will move. So I think there'll be let's say a construction disturbance for 3 to 6 months in any one area, but by the end.
Switch to Emmanuel Blairez, who's the project manager, and he's going to present in greater detail some of what Martin has already described. But Martin Tiffin, thank you, the managing director of EACOP. And if you'll stay around, I'm sure we'll have some other questions after Emmanuel's presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Samantha.
So we can start with a safety moment from Emmanuel. Emmanuel, are you with us?
Yes. Do you hear us, Fanta?
Yes, we do.
Okay, then good morning, everybody. My name is Emmanuel Blarez. I am the project director of EACOP project. And with most of the technical team, we are currently based in Dar es Salaam, from where we will share this presentation. Then generally on EACOP project, we start all our meeting and workshop by doing a safety moment. Then I will start today's meeting and I would like to share a safety moment related to the heavy vehicle blind spot. If we can have the slide. Thank you. Then what is the definition of a blind spot? A blind spot is an area around a vehicle that the driver cannot see, either directly or by using mirror. Okay? Then generally we have the front area, the side area, which is the largest blind spot area, and the back, obviously. Who is at risk? It's relevant generally to most of us as a pedestrian, cyclist, or motorcyclists. We need obviously to be extremely vigilant, to pay attention to our position in relation to this large vehicle, such as truck. The high-risk area for this issue are generally all the crowded areas, such as village, the school road, the church road, the community center, and the market. What we need to know is generally in serious incidents involving a truck, 1/3 of the victims are vulnerable users. Then for that, to avoid this blind spot issue, there are some mitigation that could be put in place. Obviously, the first one is the driver awareness and training. We have as well the possibility to mechanically eliminate those blind spot areas by involving some camera monitoring or some 360 bird view and other sensors. We have as well other mitigations such as a warning system, audible like when reversing, and visible by putting some sticker on the side of the truck. And as well, we may have some technical way to minimize the risk of a blind spot, and the risk of links to the blind spot is to have some physical access avoidance below the truck by side underrun protection, as you see on the right of the slide, on the lower part right. Okay. Then for EACOP project is very important because you know that as said by Martin previously, we'll have a huge number of trucks along the road of Tanzania and Uganda for delivering the line pipe to the cheese coating plant, and then later on from the cheese coating plant to the marshalling yard all along the pipeline route, both in Tanzania and in Uganda. And we need to remind as well that every day on the road worldwide, there are more than 3,500 people who lost their life in road accidents. And for us, it will be a major issue, and we will most likely monitor this blind spot issue during the EACOP project on the truck that will work for our project. Thank you very much. Then I will move to this today workshop. And first, we Vous n'avez pas la main? C'est Okay, next slide. Thank you. Okay, what is the aim of today's workshop? Is first to answer to the Ugandan supplier and service provider expectation. We would like to provide you a clear status about EACOP projects and explanation about how and when to engage on EACOP project. To achieve this objective, we will just recall quickly the description of the EACOP project. We'll give you some information about the EACOP planning, to show you where we are and when the different activity should start in Uganda in the coming months. As well, we'll explain you the overall contracting strategy that has been put in place for the development of the project. We'll give you a general idea about the expected activity, service, goods, manpower, skill set that should be provided by Ugandan supplier and service provider. We'll give you a brief explanation about the national content requirements and the selection process of good and service provider from the expression of interest until the award of contract. To do so, we have invited with us 4 of our main international contractors that will present you as well their expectation about embarking Ugandan company in the project. Next slide. Quick word about EACOP project. The EACOP project, as explained by Martin, is a part of the Lac Albert development in Uganda. The purpose of the EACOP project is to export the crude oil from Kingfisher and Tilenga field to the Tanga port in Tanzania. The EACOP facility starts at Kabale Hub in Uganda until Tanga in Tanzania through a 1,443 kilometer pipeline. In Uganda, the EACOP system is nearly 300 kilometers long from Hoima to Kula. Okay? EACOP as well will manage on behalf of Tilenga projects the installation of the feeder line from Tilenga CPF to the Kabale hub, which is 95 kilometers away. The main feature along the EACOP pipeline are the pumping station and the pressure reducing station. All along the route, we have 6 pumping stations, 2 being in Uganda, PS1 and PS2, and we have 2 pressure reducing stations, PRS1 and PRS2 in Tanzania before the arrival in Tanga. All along the pipeline route, we have 16 main camp pipeyards, 4 being in Uganda and 12 in Tanzania, sorry. Then, as said by Martin, the EACOP is a company which is created for the purpose of the project development and for the subsequent 25 years operation phase. The partnership include Total Energy, which has 62% of the share, CNOOC 8%, TPDC 15%, and UNOC 15%. Next slide. Few items about the description of the EACOP project. Then the main characteristic of the EACOP pipeline in Uganda, it's 391 kilometers of 24-inch buried, heat-traced and insulated pipeline, 95 kilometers for the feeder line, and 296 kilometers for EACOP. The design flow rate of the line is 216 kilobarrels of oil per day. Then we have 6 pumping stations to maintain the flowing pressure, the arrival of the crude in Tanga. Associated with the pipeline, we will have to install more than 10,000 kilometers of cable, such as high voltage cable, electrical heating tracing cable, optic fiber cable. The future operator of the EACOP system will be based at CPF in Tilenga, at PS1 in Kabale, at PS4 and 5 in Tanzania, and in Tanga terminal. With respect to the power which is necessary for the pumping and heating functionality, we need roughly 80 megawatts. Then in Uganda, this power will be provided from the grid. And in Tanzania, the power will be generated at PS4 and PS5 and at the terminal by using autonomous generator. And on top of that, we will install solar farm on 6 construction camp pipe yard. And as well, we plan for a future connection to the local grid. Next slide. Few more technical detail about the pipeline design. Something which is important to mention is that the crude, due to its characteristic, need to remain always above 50 degrees C to flow. And to achieve it, we need to apply a thermal insulation coating, roughly 70 millimeters of polyurethane foam, on the entire pipeline length. On the picture, you see an example of this thermal insulation coating. This activity will be done in Tanzania. Do you hear us?
Yes, it's okay.
It's okay. Je vois pas les slides.
For that interruption.
Oui, mais les slides.
Can I hear you? Please continue.
Okay, it's okay.
Okay. Then again, to achieve the target to have the line pipe always above 50 degrees, we need to apply this thermal insulation coating on the entire pipeline length. And on the picture, you see an example of this thermal insulation coating that will be done in Tanzania with a dedicated plant that will be built near EACOP, which is roughly at the midpoint of the EACOP pipeline system. As well, to maintain the temperature always above 50 degrees C, we need to install an electrical heating system all along the pipeline. For that, we will install heat tracing cable on the top of the pipeline in the raceway that you see on the picture on the right of the slide, on the lower part of the slide on the right. Then to deliver power to this heating system, we will have to lay down high voltage cable parallel to the pipeline that will be connected to the heat tracing cable at dedicated substation along the pipeline route. We plan to have more than 20 electrical substations along the pipeline route. As well, fiber optic cable will have to be installed close to the top of the pipeline for the pipeline control system and for the communication means. The pipeline will be buried all along its length. And for safety and environmental reasons, the pipeline will be fit with block valve, nearly one every 20 kilometers. Next slide. This slide is devoted to explain you the EACOP contractual strategy that has been put in place for the development phase of the project. Then we have selected what we call an EPCM contractor, which is Worley from UK. And Worley is in charge of all the engineering and procurement service for the project. And they will be in charge as well of the management of the construction and the commissioning. Okay? This is the main contractor for EACOP project. Then below Worley, obviously we'll have to award a series of construction contracts. The first one are related to early civil work contracts. We have to do site preparation on the 4 MCPY for all the access road, for water sourcing well, etc., etc. All this early civil works activity fall under what we call the reserve contract that will be subcontracted to a local Ugandan company. The other construction contracts are the installation and construction of the above ground infrastructure, such as the pumping station in Uganda. We have 2 pumping stations in Uganda. And as well, we have a pipeline construction contractor that will be in charge of the overall pipeline construction in Uganda and in Tanzania. For the export system of the pipeline in Tonga, we plan to award 3 contracts, one for the terminal construction, one EPC contract for the tank, the storage tank in Tonga, and one contract for the jetty export loading facility. Okay? Regarding the procurement of the main equipment, then we'll have to place an order for the line pipe. We have nearly 85,000 of 80-meter joints to procure. All this line pipe will be delivered in Tonga, transported to EACOP for coating, and then dispatched all along the EACOP pipeline route at the various marshalling yards. This is the purpose of the Logistic contract. As well, we have the backbone of the system, what we call it EITS for Electrical Instrumentation Control and Telecom. And this is roughly the overall contractual strategy of EACOP project. The green star that you see on this slide indicates the contractors that are present today and that will provide you useful information this morning. Most of the level 1 contractors are international companies, except, as I said previously, early civil works, which will be local companies. The national content commitment was a key consideration in the evaluation process and in the final selection of level 1 contractor. The local content requirements are embedded in these contracts. These level 1 contractors will have to maximize the use of local goods and local services providers through subcontracting, and you see on the bottom part of the slide. They have made commitments, and EACOP will have to tightly monitor their performance with respect to national content achievements. Level 1 contractors are as well perfectly aware of the reserve contract for Ugandan parties, such as the civil works, transportation, security, fuel supply, land surveying, etc., etc. Next slide. Where we are on EACOP project, then you know that the intergovernment agreement between Uganda and Tanzania has been signed back in 2017. We have signed the host government agreement between government of Uganda and EACOP in April 2021. Finally, we signed as well the host government agreement between the government of Tanzania and EACOP in May 2021. Recently, we signed the shareholder agreement between CNUC and EACOP, which was the last partner to be involved in the shareholder agreement. In addition to this agreement, the enabling legislation in Tanzania and Uganda is to be enacted into law, and these activities are currently ongoing in both countries. With this remaining activity in front of us, we expect to effectively start the project end 2021, early 2022. Then if we move to the next slide, we will show you some schedule of the EACOP project. Thank you. Then this is the project execution schedule, the construction schedule of the EACOP system. Then with the objective to effectively start the project early next year, let's say 1st Jan 2022, the following activities are currently planned. First, the activity related to the land acquisition process for the pipeline right-of-way and for the AGI's location. We expect the land lease to be in place in 2022, and with this land lease in place, that should allow the start of the pipeline and AGI construction activity. But in the meantime, we should start some early civil works activity at the main camp and pipe yard and at their access road. The EPCM contract with Worley should start as well, with mainly engineering and procurement activity in 2022. Then as well, we need to order the line pipe, most likely to 2 or 3 international pipe mills. The first delivery of the line pipe is expected after 7 months, and the last one after 22 months. We need to launch as well the integrated logistic contract. This one includes the transportation of all EACOP project components from their fabrication location to the various sites in Uganda and in Tanzania. And namely, we spoke about the line pipe transportation. Then as well, we need to award the thermal insulation contract for the line pipe that will be done in Tanzania. Then for that purpose, a coating plant will be developed and constructed near Isaka, and all the line pipe for Tanzania and Uganda will be coated there. The development of the electrical instrumentation and control system of the pipeline will start as well on 1st Jan 2022, but the work at site will not occur before 2023. Finally, all pipeline and AGI construction activity will start as soon as the land lease is granted. This means not before mid to end 2022. For construction activity at Tanga, we expect to start the construction activity slightly earlier in Q3 2022. Just to recap, because it's important to understand, the main activity for EACOP project in 2022 are the land acquisition phase, some early civil works activity, including the MCPY and their access road, and late 2022, we will start the pipeline and AGI construction activity. Next slide. I think this gives you a brief presentation of EACOP project and schedule. What we recommend you, next slide please. What we recommend you, if you want to recover more information about EACOP project, we encourage you to visit our website at eacop.com. You will find useful information about the project itself, its technical description. You will find information about as well our commitments, in particular for all environment, safety and social aspects of the project. You will find our job application and all the tendering activity. This will be explained in more detail in the coming presentation. All the future call for tender for the supply of goods and service in Uganda will be posted on our EACOP website, including the one from our main contractor. Then now I think I will let the floor to Samantha if there is any question on the EACOP project presentation. Thank you very much.
Detailed presentation and an overview of the project. And to summarize for the viewers at home, he took us through the project's contractual strategy, starting with the engineering, procurement, and construction management contract, which I'll repeat again, has been awarded to Worley Parsons, based out of the UK, but who of course will be mobilizing to Tanzania and Uganda. CPP, who will be doing the pipeline construction and above ground facilities. Bolloré, who will be in charge of the main logistics contract. And it's important that we're going to hear from all three of those today, as well as the final contractor in charge of the electrical instrumentation and thermal insulation. The process to award them the contracts, they had to make national content commitments And it will be interesting to hear from them how those commitments are going to be realized in Uganda today. So, Martin, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
No, I think we're good for the time being. I understand now we have a short film, so I propose we move to that.
Yes, we have a short video on the project to again sensitize all our audience at home on the project and how it will take shape in Uganda. Thank you.
In 2006, commercial quantities of oil were confirmed to exist in the Lake Albert Basin in Uganda. The oil companies in Uganda,
Total
is operated by
Total Energies
and the Kingfisher operated by Sinopec. And part will be exported to the international market. The export to the international market will be through an export crude oil pipeline, the 143-kilometer crude oil export pipeline that will transport Uganda's crude oil from the government of Uganda as the least costly and most robust. Due to the viscous and waxy nature of Uganda's longest electrically heat-traced pipeline in the world. The pipeline will be buried to minimize impact on the environment with some facilities above ground designed to ensure minimal environmental and social impact. The project will be compliant with the Ugandan and Tanzanian national legislations and international best practices. In Uganda, the EACOP originates at the few kilometers of insulated electrical heat-traced buried 24-inch pipeline. The above-ground installations shall include other facilities required to support the construction of the pipeline will be built, such as 4 main camps for the construction teams, pipe storage yards, access roads, and borrow pits. These will be restored or handed over for other uses as appropriate. Prizes: 4 pumping stations, 2 pressure reduction stations, intermediate block. The crude oil transported by the pipeline will be stored in the marine storage terminal before being shipped and sold to other countries. Vessels will be loaded with the crude oil out of a dedicated facility on a 2-kilometer-long jetty that goes into the open seas. Hello. The EACOP will provide business opportunities for the different sectors of the economy involved in the pipeline design, construction, and operation and decommissioning. This will create a trickle-down economic effect, spurring the development of national content. It is expected that casual workers who will be involved in the construction phase of the project will be sourced locally from each district, promoting the development of local capacity to develop between Uganda and Tanzania through the development of new infrastructure, logistics, technology transfer, and the improvement of the livelihoods of East Africans. In 2006, commercial quantity completed the exploration phase and are now headed into development. The Tilenga project is operated by
Total Energies
and once produced, part of the crude oil will be refined in Uganda to supply the local market and part will be exported to the international market. The export EACOP is a 1,400 to Tanga port in Tanzania. The pipeline route was selected by the government of Uganda's crude oil. The pipeline will be heat traced to maintain the temperature of the oil at 50 degrees, making the EACOP the longest electrically heat traced pipeline in the world. The pipeline will be buried to minimize impact on the environment with some facilities above ground designed to ensure minimal environmental and social impact. The project will be compliant with the Ugandan and Tanzanian national legislations, district, and comprises the following components: 296 kilometers of insulated electrical heat-traced buried 24-inch pipeline. The above-ground installations shall include 2 pumping stations, intermediate block valves, electric heat trace substations, other pipe storage yards, access roads and phase. The EACOP in Tanzania covers 1,001 immediate block valves, electric heat trace substations, and 12 main camps and pipe yards. The crude oil transported by the pipeline will be stored in the marine storage terminal before being shipped and sold to other countries. Hello.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is the EACOP National and Martha McCoy, EACOP's Capacity Building Lead. And we also have online the National Content Manager, Olivier, joining in from our Dar office. This next section is going to take us through the project's national content overview across the two countries and the commitments made at a project level and how we intend to monitor those to ensure the full participation of nationals in each of Uganda and Tanzania. Olivier, are you with us?
Yes. Hi, Samantha.
Morning.
I'm trying to rotate.
Okay. So if you missed the earlier part of this morning, we had Martin Tiffin, the Managing Director of EACOP, who took us through the project and in particular the two roles it plays, which is to transport the crude from Telenga and Kingfisher, but also the fact that it is a company with shareholders that is built to generate revenue alongside exporting oil. So if we can go to Olivier for this morning's session, yes, we can.
Are you with us, Samantha? Is it okay? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Olivier, but I can see Karim, not you.
Yeah, okay, we'll rotate a bit. Okay, I'm here. Morning, everyone. So I'm the National Content Manager for EACOP. I'm glad to have here all of you today. I will bring you to our National Content Plan. And like Emmanuel mentioned earlier, the aim of this workshop, again, is to present to everyone all the opportunities on EACOP and how to engage with EACOP. So we'll bring you through a slide back in which we will present you our plan and then the opportunities. Also, I just wanted to emphasize that we wish to be transparent and we want to make sure that we are on a competitive market. So that's why we are bringing all the information over to you today. And also I could notice that some of the people online were not having access all the time to the slides. So, and also we can fully appreciate that there are lots of information that we are displaying today. So we wanted just to highlight that all the content of our presentation will be on our website by the end of this week on eacop.com. So no worries and no panic in case you will not see or you would have missed some information. Everything will be accessible on our website. Thank you. So now I will bring you through our vision and our national content pillar. So yes, our vision is to promote the economic development in Uganda and to build the capacity of national companies and Ugandan citizens. But if there is something that we want each and everyone to remind today is our national content pillars. So first one is the employment and training of Ugandan citizens. Then goods and services. So we want to promote the use of local goods and services. And the third one is capacity building and technology transfer. So I'm going to bring you through each and every of these pillars and to explain what is our plan. Next slide, please. Okay. So first one, employment and training. So EACOP and its contractors will give priority to Ugandan nationals. And as you can see on the table, those are the minimum percentage of Ugandan citizens that have to be employed on the EACOP project by each and every one. So I'll come back later to this point. It's from the the regulation and the host government agreement we have signed. And then we have the training. So training, first of all, for local communities, for them to have access to the jobs at the level of competence of the workforce. So this was our first pillar. Then on the next slide, our second pillar. Next slide, please. Yes. So goods and services. So priority is given to the available national goods and services on an open tendering. So we'll come back to this point, but we are going to do lots of advertising, public advertising. Also, national content criteria represent at least 10% of the technical score when we do our evaluation, and same for our contractors. Transparency and advertising are key in the procurement process, and local community must be involved in the supply chain. Also, we do have what we call reserve contracts for Ugandan companies. So on the next slide, please. So this is the list of reserve contracts. We are scrutinizing companies for all these type of services that you see in this list. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and the third pillar is on capacity building initiative, especially that we try to develop. Sometimes it's not too clear to each and everyone what is capacity building. So these are a few examples that we are trying to start developing and push forward on EACOP. First one being partnership companies. As you probably know, all our main contractors will be into a kind of partnership agreement with some local companies, and we are putting everything in place so that local companies can benefit from the experience of working with these international companies and can grow from it and raise their competencies so that they can take other job or commercial opportunity in the future. Second one is the Industry Enhancement Center and quarterly forum. So today is a kind of first forum which we launched. There will be some other forum with some other topics. It can be training, also business development and opportunities. So we will come back regularly and we'll build up this Industry Enhancement Center to the benefit of local subcontractors and vendors especially. Then the third initiative is what we call Train the Trainer. So also each and every of our main contractors confirms that they will dedicate some time to the professors of Ugandan universities, and they will share some know-how with them so that professors can then cascade this knowledge to their students. Another one is the training for local communities. We will also develop some scholarship and internship. So internship, it means for some Ugandan students to go abroad at the facilities of some of our main contractors and universities to get some learning and know-how. And also we will give some support to some local institutions, sometimes some donations to local communities, and some business development initiative also. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so this is just to remind that the regulator is Petroleum Authority of Uganda. So the guideline we are following is national content midstream regulation and also our host government agreement. And we also encourage each and every vendor and subcontractor to register as what we call the NSD, the National Supplier Database of PAU. And I also take the opportunity here to thank both PAU and UNOC for their very good support. Next slide, please. Okay, it's just a quick highlight on one of the definitions which we can find in the regulation. So the Ugandan company definition, which you can see on the screen, and the registered entity definitions are strictly followed by our team when we evaluate some bids or offers that we receive. I will not go into the detail, but it is a point of attention. Next slide, please. Okay, so as emphasized earlier by both Martin and Emmanuel, we have this kind of contracting and subcontracting cascade. So it is not that EACOP is going directly to engage with vendors, subcontractors, and local community. We have our main contractors that we call sometimes level 1. They are going also to look themselves for goods and services locally, and they are going to advertise. And this is how basically that people and local companies can engage with EACOP. And today, as said before, 4 of the main contractors are with us in this room, and they are going to present their schedules, their procurement plan, and they are going to give all their contact details so that people can contact them. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is, in a nutshell, just to disclose our first main contractor. So their name is Worley, a famous worldwide company who is here with us to do the engineering, procurement, construction, commissioning, and project management. So today they will introduce themselves and disclose which are the goods and services and number of people they will look for our EACOP project. Next slide, please. So this is a summary of all what they will be looking for in terms of goods and services. So as you can see, there are lots of electrical products, safety goods, mechanical equipment, and also hydrology devices and services that they will look for. And they will come back to this in more details, and then also by providing some contact details and how to reach them. I think it's the end of my presentation, and I would be glad to give and hand over to you, Samantha and Hedy. I think we will going to bring you through the civil presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivier. Thank you, Olivier, for your presentation. And again, an important reminder is all of the slides and the presentations made today are available on EACOP's website, www.eacop, available to answer. So now we'll turn to Heidi Dadani, who will take us through the early civil works package, which, as Martin and Emmanuel explained earlier, is a reserved contract in each of Uganda and Tanzania. Hi, Heidi.
Hi, good morning. I am Heidi Dandani, manager of the early civil work. I will present you the early civil work within the project and its importance. So I prepare some slides for that, and after we will go to the question. So first slide, please. Okay, in this slide you see where the early civil work activities is located. As presented before, we have to prepare the sites for the pumping station and also the camps, which they serve as accommodation and pipe storage for the pipeline. And you see here the locations in this slide, which are located mainly in the central and in the west part of Uganda, between Hoima and the border, Uganda and Tanzania, and it covers all the part of the pipeline in Tanzania. Next, please. So what is the scope? You see in this by 350 meters. So we have, as presented before, we have 4 camps, 2 pumping stations, and they are located in the west and in the central part of Uganda, and covering several districts. So we have Hoima, and we have several districts from Hoima to the border. So where we are, what is the expected planning for these early civil work activities? So the call for tender is done, and we are now in the call for tender evaluation and negotiations. And the bid evaluation report will be issued to the partners early 2022, and we plan to start the construction beginning of Q2 2022, knowing that the land access is expected by this period. And also it is important to note that an EOI was completed in 2018 in order to pre-qualify the bidders. Next, please. Early civil work is only one part. Another part is the water supply, because we have to supply the water to all the camps and to all the pumping stations. And also we have a program to do this. So the activities of the water supply cover one part of the engineering. The first part is the engineering, in order to investigate by hydrological studies that the water is there, and after the development of wells. And if there is no groundwater, we work in order to have a tie-in to an existing water systems from the national water system authorities. Next. So the expected planning, call for tender is done. The CFT evaluation, the call for tender evaluation is ongoing. And we are working now in Q4 of this year to forward to the partner the bid evaluation report. And our intention is to award this contract early 2022. Next. So also the third part related to the civil work activities is replacement housing, because along the right of way we have some what we call PEP, people affected by the project, where their house is either on the camp locations or on the pumping station location or in the right of way locations, and we have to replace their house and to give them new locations, and we built their accommodations. So in total we have 210 houses to be replaced, but this cover a lot of districts, 12 districts. So the scope of work was split into several lots in order to be able to manage this replacement of housing, knowing that the activities are multiple activities, starting from the site preparation for each house, the material selection, the concrete work, the roofing finishing, the secondary work, the electrical, and we will do preferences for the solar supply and the external work. Next. So where we are in the housing, so the EOI is completed in March 2021. The tendering process completed. We issue the bid evaluation report to the authorities and to the partners, and we are waiting for the approval, for their approval, in order to start the replacement of those housing. Next. So the fourth part of the civil activities is a good opportunities for the national companies, because the contracts are highlighted before are reserved exclusively to the local Ugandan companies. So for all the pumping station, the AGI, which is the structure above ground structure, like the pumping station. So we have a lot of civil work. As you see in the slide, it is a layout of one pumping station. where we have a lot of facilities, starting from the pumps to the power generation, to some building, to some pipe racks. And the activities will cover all the foundations for the structure and pipe support. The roads, there is roads inside each pumping station. Trenching for underground network, there is kilometers of electrical and instrumentation cable, and also water network inside the pumping station. Oil, because the pipeline is passing by this pumping station. And of course, within the civil work activities is the building. So we have several buildings. We have the guard houses, workshops, and some office building. And of course, all these activities are reserved to the local Ugandan companies. Next. I think there is one before, no? One before. Well, let's go to the last one, please. We forget the pipeline, a slide related to the pipeline. Also, the pipeline is within the pipeline, the construction of the pipeline. There is a lot of civil work. So starting from the clearing of the right-of-way and going to the trenching and the cable laying, all these activities are within the construction of the pipeline. So the tendering process is clear for us. Activities directly this, and we consider only the Ugandan companies. And there is some activities within our main contractors, and our main contractors, they know that all these activities of civil work, they have to do the necessary in order to do the EOI, the associated call for tender, and award these activities to the local Ugandan companies.
I think it's an important thing you said is the early civil works package is first of all being managed directly by EACOP, and then these sites will be handed over to the contractors. Civil works packages within their overall package, and again those are reserved for Ugandan companies for the Ugandan part of the pipeline. And the civil works involve huge quantities of materials again that are used and sourced locally. You mentioned aggregate, soil, HDPE liner, some of the materials used for tarmac.
Yeah, geotextile.
And geotextile is used for what? After you've cleared the site,
Yeah, to protect the site, to not have a contamination of the soil.
Okay.
Yeah.
And all of that again will be sourced locally.
Absolutely. All this material will be sourced locally for the early civil work and after for the civil work within the pumping station and the pipeline. And also there is a lot of procurement, in-house procurement for the water supply, because there is a lot of equipment like the solar panels, like the pumps, like the piping, which we can find locally and will be sourced locally.
Okay. And the early civil works will be done on the sites, which are 4 construction camps and 2 pumping stations. And if we can go back to that slide so everyone can see the districts where those sites are.
Yeah, I think the second slide. Well, as we say, the early civil work is covering 2 regions of Uganda, the west and the central, and concern several districts. So we have Oima, we have Kakumiro, we have Mubonda, and we have Sambabule, and finally Kyotera. Yeah. All these districts are concerned by the early civil works. And of course, during these activities, one of our objectives is the recruitment process. So all our contractors, they know that we agree with them on a recruitment process in order to recruit people from the local communities and from the district concerned by the civil work activities.
Excellent. Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you.
I think we're going to turn now to Martha McCoy, who's the EACOP's capacity lead, and she's going to take us through her section of the National Content Overview. Welcome, Martha.
Thank you, Samantha, and thank you, Eddie. Thank you to all our viewers for tuning in. Good morning to you all. So I'll continue moving on to other packages, as we have seen the early civil work packages. Next slide, please. Next. So moving on to the logistics package, we will have Bolore in the room here with us later on to present more of what is in the package. But in the meantime, we expect to have 40 trucks that will transport about 70,000 tons, of which 55,000 will be of the line pipes. So the transportation will be from the thermal installation workshop in Tanzania all the way to MCPY4, which has been mentioned by Eddie, and will distribute to the other areas. Next slide, please. The goods and services that are applicable in this package, and as mentioned previously by the previous speakers, that will be sourced locally. To name few, we'll have mechanical tools, the vehicles, of course, the HSSC, the communication services will be required, the lifting services will be required, and many more. Next slide, please. In the EATS, in electrical instrumentation telecommunication package, this will entail of electrical and telecommunication equipment. The equipment, most of them will be sourced in Uganda. So as we say, we complied with the national contest regulation. Next slide, please. And the goods and services that will be needed, definitely electrical supplies, they will require legal services, banking services, they will require office supplies, all this in order for them to support their project within Uganda. Next slide, please. In the pipeline construction, as Eddie has said, it will include the activities like clearing the site, welding, digging of the site as well. And this will be in the 391 kilometers, including the feeder line from Kabale to Mtukula. Next slide, please. The goods and services that will be needed to support these activities, the engineering studies, the safety services, as Emmanuel have said, safety is a priority, so we'll have to ensure that we comply with our safety rules. We will need lifting services, catering services, etc. Next slide, please. In the above ground infrastructures, as mentioned by Eddie, we'll have two pumping station number 1 and number 2, that will be constructed on this end. And the goods and services, we'll see it on the next slide, please, that will be required for these services. We'll need engineering studies, consultation services, assembler services, as well as we can see the quantities that are needed to achieve these activities, and most of the quantities or most of the items will be sourced here in Uganda. Concrete, earthwork, trenching, and the approximately of the quantities that is required. Next slide, please. EACOP will also need activities to support this project. So we will have short-term activities and the long-term activities. Our short-term activities, the HRs and office accommodation, IT services, we'll need logistics. And on the next slide, please, it is our long-term activities such as the legal services, finance services, banking services, and many more. Next slide, please. In general, all these packages will generate about 1,600 jobs, and the jobs will be allocated to the national Ugandan citizens, and most of the jobs will be applicable in 2023. That's where we see a lot of activities will happen. Next slide, please. Majorities of the job will be on the pipeline, but not to say that other packages will not hire. They'll also hire, and we're expecting to have approximately of about 124 training hours and man hours of 5.6 million. And with this, the early civil works activities are not included. Next slide, please. So in a nutshell, those are the skill sets that will be needed in this project. We need a lot of helpers, guards, catering service, carpenters, workers, and supervisors, and just many more. So in all these jobs, as have been mentioned by Samantha and everyone else, that will be allocated to the national Uganda citizens. Next slide, please. This is combined the goods and services that will be required as in a whole. Most of them have been mentioned, so the electrical, the piping, the HSSC, the vehicles, and transportation. Next slide, please. We'll also have different capacity building activities, as been mentioned by Olivia, together with our main contractors and partnering with Ugandan companies. We're expected to have 1,600 man-hours in training, the trainers program, 1,000 hours in industrial enhancement centers. We'll also provide support to the local communities, to the local institutions. We work together with the local institutions. All this is to ensure that we enhance our local suppliers and youth Ugandans in terms of the technology transfer and be able to upgrade or increase their skills and capacity. Next slide, please. So we are working on our logo. As you can see that we are transparent. We'll ensure that we achieve and exceed our expectation so that to ensure that this project will succeed in both EACOP and in Uganda citizens as well. Thank you, Samantha.
Thank you, Martha. Thank you, Martha, for your presentation. And I think you took us through some important slides, distinguishing between goods and services that will be procured and materials procured locally, but also an important part being the corporate services that EACOP as well as the contractors will procure locally, legal, HR, renting accommodation, all the activities around being a company operating in Uganda. So thank you, that was an important slide. I think we may be joined now by Karim, who's the Contracts and Procurement Manager, also based out of our Dar office. And he's going to take us through the project's contract strategy and the call for tender process, because I know it's important for the audience watching to understand exactly how the project carries out its procurement and how they can participate in that process. Karim, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Good morning to everyone. Good morning, Samantha.
Morning. Yes.
Okay, so I will just briefly start to introduce myself. As you said, I'm the Contracts and Procurement Manager at EACOP. So the objective of the forum, as Martin, Olivier, and Emmanuel said, is basically to go through the technical aspect of the project, as it has been done by Emmanuel, our project director. Then to talk also about our main contractors that have been already awarded, and then to talk about two aspects. The first one being how this project is going to benefit to the suppliers and the subcontractors and all companies that are interested to work with EACOP. And the second one being what is the process, because it's good to have the opportunities. We've seen we have many reserve contracts in the country, but it's better to fulfill the requirements to become a future subcontractor, contractor, and to be part of this adventure. So let's start with the presentation. If you can put the slides on the screen, and we'll go through briefly a short introduction and after directly to the process. Okay, thank you. So as you can see on the screen, I've displayed here the procurement plan of EACOP. Procurement plan of EACOP being split in three, I will say, or three categories. We have what has been already launched and what has been already done. And I'm going to come back to that in a minute. it's on the left side, on the right side, sorry, of the screen, where we talk about the project, because all the package on the project have been already launched as a call for tender. Some of them have been already awarded, some others are going to be awarded soon. And on the left side, you will see, and this has been also discussed and introduced by Olivier in his presentation, opportunities that will come from EACOP as a company, because EACOP as a company is going to operate and is going to need every services a company has to get, which means HR services, you have communication services, logistics, IT, land and social, that is a very big activity these days, and the HSE. And as it's displayed in the screen, you can see there are short-term and long-term. Short-term are to build the company, what do we need? So you can see that we have like to rent accommodations, we need some technical assistance services, office supplies, we need also some environmental consultancies. So these are really the services we are needed as we speak. And then in the long term, once the company will be established, once the project will be fully completed, we will have and we will need services in both countries that will need to be in place in order to sustain and to support the activities of the companies. So now, next slide, please. I would like to go through the objective of this forum is basically to go through who we have already awarded and who we are going to work with in the I will say, short period. So namely, we have Worley, CPP, Schneider-Snef, and Bolloré for the logistics, EITS, AGI pipeline, and EPCM. So these companies are present, as we said before today, and they are going to go through what we do today, but they are going to go through the opportunities they are going to bring to companies that are interested to join this adventure. So next slide, please. So here I'm not going to redo it another time, but briefly, the strategy, as you can see, I will say 2 or 3 main points. Main point number 1 being it has been unbundled. We are not in a structure of a project where we have one big EPSCC taking everything, and then we'll have below this EPSCC opportunities for subcontractors, sub-vendor, and sub-contractors and vendors. Here it has been unbundled in a way that it can bring opportunities, I would say everywhere, either in Tanzania and mainly also in Uganda. Second main point being the fact that our contractors have fulfilled all the obligations for national and local content, meaning from the advertising exercise to the obligations of having commitments in terms of local and national content, and that's why you see this information at the bottom of the screen. This is where we are today. This is where we are. We are the four stars that represent the contractors that have been awarded. You can see that these contractors are very important contractors within our contracting strategy, and these contractors are going to open opportunities through EOIs, through advertising, and we'll come back in a minute how this will be displayed if you want to have this opportunity. So next slide, please. So now here, as you can see on the left and on the right, on the left, again, we see the contractors that are present with us and that have been selected. On the right, you can see the tendering activities that are still ongoing, meaning the early civil works as presented by Eddie, the certification package, the water sourcing, and also the long lead items that are namely the pumps, the cables, the valves, and the power generators. These are the last tender ongoing for the project. The other ones being in the way to be, I would say, awarded or having already been awarded. And as I said, as a reminder, again, I want to repeat this. We did the advertising exercise. It was a long time ago. But so now let's focus on the objective, I would say, of the presentation today is the sourcing process. How does it work? How can I, if I'm one of you, because I know that many of you are watching us today, if I want to have this opportunity tomorrow to join EACOP, how can I do? Because we know that many of you are sending emails, contacting us through LinkedIn or other ways, and they just want to know, how can I join this opportunity? The first thing everyone who is interested to work with EACOP has to do is basically to look at the expression of interest, basically to look at the newspapers. We publish every EOI, what we call expression of interest, EOI, in 2 newspapers in Uganda, namely the New Vision and the Daily Monitor. And every EOI is going to be also added to our website. So this is the first thing you have to do. If you want to join us, you need to look at these 2 ways, newspapers and EACOP website. So once we get the interest from companies, because that's the way it works, an EOI, briefly for those who don't know, but I think most of you know, but a quick reminder, what is an expression of interest? An expression of interest is when a company like EACOP is going to express publicly the needs. So it can be for any kind of services and goods, and we will put some criteria to fulfill. And then if one of the companies interested believes that the company has the capability to do that, to fulfill our requirement, but it will express interest through the channel. So usually it's through an email to reply and to submit what we were requesting. So next. So then, once we get all the expression of interest, we are not. I will say 2 things. We are not going to invite to the call for tender process all companies, because there will be a process of selection that will be implemented. This process can be simple or more complex, meaning it can be just a selection following the replies, and we just, I will say, shortlist the companies that have the ability to do the work, or it can be through what we will call a PQQ, Pre-Qualification Questionnaire, where we will send an additional questionnaire to companies that have been shortlisted, and then we will establish our final bidder list. And then once we do all this, the selected companies will get the call for tender, will get the tender documents, and they will have to submit their bid. The next slide is the tender evaluation procedure, and this is something we do before opening call for tenders. We define what will be the criteria used to evaluate the offers, and we will see in a minute what criteria we have in terms of technical aspects, contractual, commercial, and some others like due diligence and human rights. So next one, please. So then, once everything has been done, it's a very, we'll say, short process. We didn't put the detail to make it more easy to understand. But basically, once we will reach the final evaluation and we will have the recommended bidder, we will do what we call the contract award. But one important element is once we complete the evaluation, whenever the difference in the commercial proposal is lower than 5%, we have to give preference, respect to the evaluation, obviously, criteria, but we have to give preference to the bidders whose offers contain the highest commitment in terms of national content. This is something we already did and we are going to do in all our call for tenders. So next one, please. So here, briefly, it has been also already shared, but these services, as you can see on the screen, are services that shall be provided by Ugandan companies. They are what we call reserve contracts, and you can see that most of them, not to say all of them, are falling into the category I was showing in the Procurement Plan earlier, meaning there will be opportunities for local and national market to provide services either to EACOP and also to our contractors, and this you will see later on. So next one. So now let's go through the criteria. How do we do? What is inside our tender evaluation procedure? There will be 4 aspects. The first one being the technical aspect. The technical aspect, it's obviously all the technical requirements depending the service or goods we are going to procure. Then we will always have what we call the HSE, Health, Safety, Environment, and also the national content that represent 10%. The weighting for the national content represents 10% in each and every evaluation we are going to do. Then there will be the commercial evaluation, obviously. We want to award the best service and the best quality, but for, I would say, the best price also. The contractual aspects, the compliance, and this I will come back in a minute regarding the due diligence process and the anti-corruption. and then the social responsibility. So now let's go into the other details. So let's go to the next slide, please. So about our timeline. This is an average. It's not always like that, but this is just to show you that time is of the essence. There's a global timeline between the moment we issue the expression of interest on the newspapers and the moment we will have to award the contract is basically between 10 and 13 weeks. It can be longer. If we do issue the pre-qualification questionnaire or the call for tender, it's very important that every company that is interested to work, either with us or with our contractors, respect these timelines. And this is something that is very essential. So these recommendations are coming from the experience we have and we had as launching call for tenders, evaluating and I would say awarding companies. First one is just what I said, the time limits. It's essential that once you want to submit something, the answers have to come before the time limit. We cannot accept to get requests for extension of time or get those, like I would say, requests to extend just before we were supposed to go to the next step. Why? Because otherwise it will jeopardize and it will delay all our planning. So this is very important. Submit the answers before the time limit. And the second one is also to complete documentation. To have complete documentation. What does it mean? It means once we ask you for certificate, for past experience, for whatever documentation we're asking, this is essential that you submit them. If you cannot, that's okay, but at least tell us to get this. Why? Because once we get incomplete documentation, this can be a criteria. I would like to invite Marianne, who is working with us for the call for tender and UI.
Strategies lead based here in Kampala, and Ugandan companies who are going to participate in the future procurement processes, not to make some of the same mistakes.
A bidding process that we always go through. Call for tender documentation, there's a whole package that talks only about questions we always get, not only you who have participated, but also you who are intending to participate in the future or the upcoming bidding process in Uganda. I'm registered with URSB. Why should I again register with the National Supplier Database of Uganda? And I'm here to explain to you why we do this. As EACOP, we are mandated by law, and that is the National Content of Petroleum Authority of Uganda. So it's a mandatory. It's nothing to do with trying to fail you out of the process. So my call, very hard process, it's something you can do within just a few minutes. And after that, you do qualify to be reached out by EACOP, by our procurement team to ask you, get other questions such as, I'm a Ugandan company, for example. Why do you want to know ownership? Why are you interested in knowing who I am? All those details. Again, the motivation of this question and what we are looking out for specifically here is we want to know, send the opportunities to the rightful people. There are no ill intentions in wanting to know more details of who the ownership of the company is. So that we ask. It's very paramount that you disclose this information. It's all in very good faith. Then companies to be part and parcel of this contracting process. So don't feel offended when we ask some of these questions. It is all in very good faith. The other question we always get to get from you, you always wonder why you're requested to submit the National Content Plan and why you're requested to submit the commitments. We always look out for this, and this is very key in our evaluation process. We want you, the company, to tell us what is your contribution. Once we award you this contract, what is a certain weight, and that is 10% of the, what are you going to contribute in terms of national content, impact, knowledge. How are you planning to transfer knowledge? How are you planning to source goods and services? We always want this commitment so that it forms a forecast that we can work with. Also, our regulators always look out for this information. They want your bids, And I'm here to tell you that watch out for that very carefully. And also you are going to deliver on, because later on we do hold you by those commitments. We come back, you always report on these commitments that you have put in your proposal, committing to deliver in terms of national content. So is it a mandatory requirement to report? It is, again, a mandatory for every contractor that gets these contracts to report on the progress. If you told us that you're going to give us, you're going to tell us the progress, or how far have you gone, and are you struggling in any way, how can you be supported? Also used to report to our regulators and tell them that this is how we think. These reports are very important to help us to monitor the progress as a company and support you to deliver the national content aspect of it. Thank you very much. Over to you, Samantha.
To help them prepare and submit their national content commitments. Because, as we said, it's not a natural process for a Ugandan company. I think an important part of Karim's presentation was that when the contract to the company that has the highest national content commitment. So obviously, it's a very, very important to help them better present their national content commitments.
Yes, I am there, part of the team. We do create forums where you can get feedback, where you can ask. Even when you submit your proposals, there is a session, do I need to present this? So we have a fully established office that you can always reach us out, and we can guide you on that to make sure that you...
Too much. So even though it might not make sense to you, write down the man hours you are actually going to use in your contract as national content manpower hours in Uganda.
Absolutely. Give as much detail and always track as much detail as you can. There is nothing like this too much.
Thank you, Marian, and thank you, Heidi, and thank you, Karim, on Zoom. We're going to take a short break in Tanzania, and then after that break, we'll be joined by David Bishop from London, from Wally Pass. Thank you.
The construction sequence. Grading is conducted to provide a level surface for construction crews. Topsoil is stockpiled on the right-of-way boundary. A wheel ditcher, or backhoe, is utilized to form the trench. Stringing ensures that each piece of pipe is positioned accurately for the next phase. If needed, the pipe will be bent to accommodate one continuous length. The survey crew records data regarding the length of the assembled pipeline. For quality control, technicians inspect the welds using non-destructive testing. Each joint is coated by a coating head and then inspected. Installation of electric heat traced and fiber optic cables. The side booms move together to ease the pipe into the trench. The pipe trench is backfilled utilizing pad fill and overburden. Hydro testing ensures pipe integrity and that it is fit for service. The pipe trench and the associated land within the construction zone are contoured and revegetated. In 2006, commercial quantities of oil were confirmed to exist in the Lake Albert Basin in Uganda. The oil companies in Uganda,
Total Energies
and CNOOC, completed the exploration phase and are now headed into development. The Tilenga project is operated by
Total Energies
and the Kingfisher operated by CNOOC. Exported to the international market. The export to the international market will be through an EACOP is a 1,443 kilometer crude oil export pipeline that will transport Uganda's crude oil from Kabale Hoima in Uganda to Tanga Port in Tanzania. The pipeline route was selected by the government of Uganda as the least costly and most robust. The oil at 50 degrees, making the EACOP the longest electrically heat-traced pipe with some facilities above ground, designed to ensure minimal environmental and social impact. The project will be compliant with the Ugandan and Tanzanian national legislations and international best practices. In Uganda, the EACOP originates at the future Kabale Industrial Park in Hoima District and comprises the following components: 296 kilometers of insulated electrical heat-traced buried 24-inch pipeline. The above-ground installations shall include 2 pumping stations, intermediate block valves, electric heat trace substations, camps for the construction teams, pipe storage yards, access roads, and borrow pits. These will be restored or handed over for other uses as appropriate at the end of the construction phase. The EACOP in Tanzania covers 1,147 kilometers and comprises 4 pumping stations, 2 pressure reduction stations, intermediate block valves, electric heat trace substations, and 12 main camps and pipe yards. The crude oil transported by the bulls will be loaded with the crude oil out of a dedicated facility on a 2-kilometer-long jetty that the EACOP will provide business opportunities for the different sectors of the economy involved in the pipeline design, construction, and operation and decommissioning. This will create a trickle-down economic effect, spurring the development of national content locally from each district, promoting the development of local capacity to develop other industrial projects in the region. The project will also contribute towards the enhancement of the central corridor between Uganda and Tanzania through the development of new infrastructure, logistics, technology transfer, and the improvement of the livelihoods of East Africans. The construction sequence.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is the EACOP National Content Supplier Development Workshop. And we've had with an important area that we frequently see companies fall. Going to take us through that. So hopefully future bidders don't repeat some of these mistakes. Thomas, are you with us? Yes, I can.
Thank you. So the health and safety of everyone working with the EACOP project is of the project. And for that reason, all our potential suppliers are also evaluated on their your A2C competences, and we will pay special attention to your manager's commitment to carry out your activities in a safe and sound manner. We do expect that you have written plans and procedures in place to ensure that your work is carried out safely and in compliance with the applicable regulation. Good and efficient implementation and use of your A2C plans and procedures requires the right skill sets. So we will also assess the qualifications of your A2C person, because the certification process will help you comply with our requirements as well as industry best practice, and it will ensure continuous improvement of your system, working with you on all A2C matters. That was all from me. I will now pass over to you, David Bishop, the local content manager from Worley.
Yeah, so we're joined now on Zoom from the London office by David Bishop, the local content manager for Worley Parsons.
Hi, Samantha. Actually, I'm not in London. I'm in Dar es Salaam. We came. Slide package showing, please. Great. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay. As Worley, we are the EPCMC, our local partners, hoping to finalise contractual agreements with them in the near future. Our two partners in Uganda are ICS and New Plan, both from Kampala. And as you can see, their expertise is mostly around construction, social and environment, highways, transport and engineering, oil and gas, power and renewable energy. So they're ideally suited to partner with us on this project. We have people from ICS and New Plan into our Kampala office and engaging capacity building of their capabilities whilst we're there. Next slide, please. Can you go to the next slide, please? Right, this would probably be more important. You have seen this one before, but this explains you can see that some areas have been highlighted. So Worley's EPMC activities, and then down to pump station number 2 and the pipeline joining up for about 300 kilometers down to EPCMC, EPCMC, I'm sorry, based in Kampala, and on finance and admin, coordination and interface management, engineering and procurement services, the sort of things you'd expect in a head office. Quality, social, environmental and permitting, and the pipeline in Uganda. Next slide, please. Expect to be establishing our Kampala office in the first half of next year. I know we're already looking for offices in Kampala. The engineering works have already begun because they've been going on in London for some time. And so has procurement. And I know that some Ugandan companies are already expressing soon with the early civil works in Tanzania, which is happening around about now. And then you'll see that we have commissioning works out in 2024-25, commissioning engineer to start looking at that. Early civil works in Uganda due to start about halfway through the first half of next year, 2022. Water supply a little bit later than that. And then what's called Lot 1 pipeline, which is the main pipeline works, starting halfway through the first half, so the end of quarter. It looks yellow on here. I hope it's meant to be orange, but never mind. The yellow is our Uganda office, and as you can see, is a normal project activity. It ramps up to a peak and then declines away. At peak, it's about 21, 22. And then you see the blue, which is our site team, which ramps up again and comes to a peak and declines. And at the peak, it's about 39, 40 people. This will vary, but our original thinking at the moment is the variance will be upwards rather than down. Next slide, please. Ugandans, okay? So looking at what's happening in an office, the project management, support, procurement, health and safety, project controls and compliance, you can see there's a number of roles in there. I won't go through them all because this presentation will be on the EACOP website and you can view it at leisure. But I will point out that my team, local content office, will be under compliance. Next slide, please. Here we have the site-based roles. Same thing, we have construction management again. There is procurement on site, but mostly focused around logistics and control of materials. Health and safety, permits, health and safety officers, an extremely important activity, as Thomas has just been saying, and there's lots of opportunity for Ugandans in that area. Quality, inspectors, and then field engineering carrying on, including SCADA down the bottom. So again, I'll let you read that on the website. Next slide, please. Okay, the recruitment process. Because we are working with local partners already, we will be recruiting from those companies. So we're taking a lot of their staff on board into our entity that we are going to be set, that we require. We will advertise in the normal way, and we will also go through our contacts in Uganda with AirSwift, Q-Sourcing and WRS. And we will be advertising those positions, I think, on the EACOP website as well, so that there'll be plenty of coverage. And each role, when it's advertised, broadcast, will be clearly explain what skills and qualifications are required. And I must point out that all engineers will be required to register with the Ugandan ERB. Okay, next slide, please. These are the project goods requirements. You've seen this slide briefly with Olivier earlier, dealing with mechanical, electrical, and telecoms and instruments. A number of these things are already out there on EOIs. So again, I would repeat the message that's been given to you by Olivier and by Karim. Keep your eye on the EACOP website. And this is more projects goods procurement. We have architectural and civil, hydrology, piping, and safety. Next slide, please. Now, to repeat some of the things that Karim have said and to show our commitment to follow the same process, we have some key principles in the call for tender process. We document everything, and everything is recorded. Procurement is project specific and is a joint EACOP Worley process, and it's subject to our quality reviews and standards, just to maintain openness, transparency and fairness. Expressions of interest and advertisements likewise go into the New Vision and the Daily Monitor newspapers, and there is a commitment there and a requirement for evidence of local content. The technical ability to deliver the scope, a list of experience, in other words, projects that you've done that are similar, ISO certification, extracts from the quality management system to show positive material ID process, and a 2-year look ahead of your shop loading charts to show that you have the availability to do the work for us. We ask you to fill in a pre-qualification questionnaire. That goes through all sorts of different technical questions, and there's a very important part on local content within that. The content are technical, local content, compliance, and price. The first 3 are looked at separately from price, that is. So the companies are ranked on their technical ability to deliver, their local content, their compliance, the quality, and everything else before we look at price. We're interested to know that companies can actually deliver before we start looking at price, and then we look for the best value for money. There is a shortlisting process, followed by detailed evaluation of the shortlisted submission, and everything is done extremely fairly and rigorously. Next slide, please. Okay, these are the contracts that Worley will need directly to support their activities in Kampala. So there are project requirements, and then there are Worley requirements. So this is for our home office. So we need transport drivers also to do that process, and we'll be training our drivers. We will need hotel. That says hotel accommodation, but actually it probably should read hotel and accommodation. We will need hotels for people who are traveling into country and then transitioning to the sites. So they may need hotel accommodation in Entebbe if their flight arrives late, and then later accommodation in Kampala before they go onto the site. We will be looking for security locally. I know our 3 managers have been there already. Office supplies we will be establishing locally, IT and equipment, and PPE. And I think it ought to be mentioned that PPE is going to be big business on this project. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the call for tender process for Worley. The last one was for the project. This is for Worley, and as you can see, it's the same thing. We follow the same process, and we ask for the same information just to make sure there's no confusion. Okay, thank you. Can you go for the next slide, please? Okay, so this is the timeline of things. The expression of interest process between 4 and 5 weeks. Obviously, there is a period of advertising in Uganda. Everything above $300,000 must be advertised for a month to give people a chance to return an expression of interest. There is a pre-qualification questionnaire to fill in. I cannot stress the importance of filling in this pre-report, which establishes the bidders list. There is then a call for tender, which is issued to companies, approved in the PQ report, and then it all goes through the process of tender evaluation, and we end up with contract award. Some of the interim bits and pieces, but it can be quite difficult sometimes, especially when apart from saying that the national content is integrated into each step of that process, national content forms 10% of the evaluation process, which is quite significant. And demonstrates the level of importance that the project gives to local content. Next slide, please. Okay, here's some interesting information for you before we wrap up. The project director is a guy called Daniel Rapiti, who will be moving into country sometime next year and will be coming to Uganda also. I'm the local content manager. I work very closely with Olivier and the local content team in Total Energies, in the EACOP, sorry. And we'll be operating as an integrated team in the future, so it'll be difficult to distinguish between us, but we will have the same goals and aspirations for the project. The procurement manager for Worley is a lady called Alison Masterson. And she's asked me to give you the following information, which I think is important for you. If you want to send you a heads up with regard to expressions of interest, then in your email you need to tell us your company name, give us your website URL if you have one, let us know your contact details, especially your email, and then very importantly, let us have a description of the equipment and materials that your company supplies. With that information, we will enter you on a database against certain product types. That means that when we have an expression of interest coming out of that product type, we will automatically send you an email which tells you to keep an eye on the newspaper in the next couple of weeks, or to look on the EACOP website. And I think it's also important to say that every single expression of interest that we put out will also be on the EACOP website. And also, if you've got a company brochure, we'd love to see it in e-copy. Next slide, please. That's it, I think, yeah? Good. Yeah. All right, Samantha, thank you.
David Bishop from Worley Parsons, the project's EPCM contractor, engineering, procurement, and construction management. And he's out in the DAR office as well, and has provided a very good overview of Worley Parsons' contractual strategy. I'm joined now in studio by Patrick Mitature, the chairman of Bolloré, Uganda, and Abdul Mukasa, the oil and gas manager at Bolloré, Uganda as well.
Thank you.
As you know, Bolloré has been selected as the main logistics contractor for EACOP, and logistics is going to be a crucial part for executing the pipeline across the two countries. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you, Samantha. Thank you for hosting this wonderful show. It's already been very insightful. Many Ugandans have learned a lot. Initially, people thought that Total and the other oil companies were holding their cards to their chest, but realize that you've been actually very transparent now, and a lot of information is coming out. By saying I'm delighted to be here on behalf of Bolloré as their chairman, and the award of a contract to be the main logistics contractor was pleasing, because we are an old hand. We've been around. We've got global reach, and yet we've been focused on the local area, especially Africa. We are probably the #1 logistics provider in Africa, certainly in this important task that's before us, to make sure that we deliver all the goods on site safely and to meet all the HSS standards, so that there are no delay, at least on behalf of, because of the logistics. Next year, middle of next year, most of the kinks should have been ironed out and business should be smooth. A bit about Bolloré. Bolloré is a company that's been in Uganda for over 53 years, and it was set up in Uganda in 1968, I think, something like that. Project only 1/4 of the project is in Uganda. So we shall focus, Bolloré Uganda shall focus on the Ugandan side, and the Bolloré Tanzania will focus on the Tanzanian side, where 3/4 of the pipeline is. And that's just a fact of nature. We can't change that around. But we're glad to be working with our brothers and sisters from Tanzania, sisters I emphasize, so that they also are involved in this project. And I hope, as my manager here, in charge of oil and gas in Bolloré, he's very experienced. He's a safe pair of hands too. He's been in the industry for the last 14 years, looking out. And we've waited for a long time, planning again for this execution. So we've done quite a lot of planning. We've probably done too much planning, and it's about time we start executing on this project. So I'll ask Abdu, my companion here, to take us forward and go into the nitty-gritty of this project, if that's okay with you.
Thank you, Patrick.
Great.
We are honored to be with you, our audience, and we're also honored to be the main logistics contractors for the EACOP, execute our activities, definitely with the partnership. Now, we do have a presentation for you that we shall be a contractor. It is purely on supply chain. I would like to have my slides good. Now, as my chairman talked about Bolloré Transport Logistics being in Uganda since 1968, actually we've made that footprint in Uganda, and we've just not been present, but we've made sure that we have an impact into the country to make sure that we assist and support the development of our economy. We are accredited. We are economic operators, authorized economic operators, accredited by URA and regionally. We have we are the regional part of the regional transporters in East Africa, and probably we think that we do operate on all ports in East Africa. But for this particular project, we'll be concentrating on activities that we're going to be handling, that will be coming into the region right through Dar es Salaam, straight through up to the oil fields of Uganda. Now, our synergies, definitely we are so much into transport and logistics, transport operations and management. We're in heavy lift and out of gauge, and others just as put up onto the screen. We do have, we conduct driver trainings all through. We can move on to the next slide. Now, our scope of work purely as the main logistics contractors of the EACOP pipeline, we are all aware that the EACOP pipeline is of about 1,543 kilometers. Some take it to be 1,044 kilometers. But we do have, into that element, we do have also the element of the pipeline, the feeder pipeline, which is not under our scope. So we as Bolloré Transport and Logistics Uganda, will be handling the light blue part, which you could see. But to talk about the entire project line, we have the offshore scope, which will begin from Origins, and we're going to be having a total of about 85,000 pipes that will be pipe joints that will be coming through straight to the Dar es Salaam port, of which will be handled by our colleagues in Tanzania, moving the fusion-based epoxy pipes from the port straight to the thermal installation system factory that will be set up in Ishaka, Tanzania. Those are purely going to be coated pipes. Now, our scope as Bolloré Transport Logistics into the supply chain will be picking pipes right from the TIS factory, which will be at Ishaka, Isaka in Tanzania. And that is after pipes have been insulated to become like the TIS pipes that are already insulated to become PUF. Now the PUF, this is the perforation foam pipes. Those pipes will all be transported by Ugandan drivers, Ugandan companies, nothing to do with, we shall make sure that full transport is by Ugandan companies in order to maximize on our national content commitments that we've shared with our contractors. Overall, we are looking at, for the Ugandan scope, we're looking at having pipes worth 296 kilometers. Allow me to say that others take it to be 391 because they're including the feeder line, which is not under our scope. We move to the next slide. We have the employment of the Ugandans, the employment opportunities. We're looking at about 100 jobs that are coming on board, that are coming for, that are going to be we're going to recruit Ugandans, about 100 jobs. And this one, roughly, it will be both the direct and indirect jobs. On the recruitment phase, we're going to be having a three-phased manner. We're going to be having running the project, having a mobilization and implementation phase that will run for about less than a year. And then we shall have the main operations running for close to about 1.5 years. And then the last phase would be the demobilization, or rather the decommissioning, to make sure that at least we take the grounds where we've been to the state where we found them, as per the agreements we've had with our contractors. To the next slide. Definitely, we are going to be having the recruitments, on the recruitment processes. We're going to have to make sure that we at least obtain and acquire our commitments as we have taken up onto the national content. And the priority is going to be on the employment of the local personnel into all phases of the job tenure, right from management, technical, and the others. We will try to make sure that the recruitment process is transparent and really following the Ugandan laws, the labor laws, altogether will be followed. And that said, our viewers there, or rather our audience, you need to ask yourself that where do you come into this? Now, you need to be registered with the National Supply Database, because we do have, these are the places where we're going to be sourcing for employment, the National Supply Database. We also have our own database, which we have tried to develop our pool on the resources using the several HR companies around who are partnering with us to make sure that at least we could have the recruitment process smooth. When we get the recruitment, definitely at that time, as we shall see in the coming slides, we shall definitely be having job advertisements through the several media prints, all through and on board. We can move to the next slide. Now, on the logistics personnel for the project, we will be having, as I said, we will be having about 100 jobs to run this MLC project of the EACOP, and we'll be having about 50 drivers. We'll be having some HSC personnel above all, and then we shall also be having other job opportunities that will be available. Take at hand, like a clearing and forwarding team. We shall need it definitely, because we shall be offering freight forwarding services. We shall need to have lashing equipment supervisors. We will need to have inventory managers. We need to have track and trace control personnel, among others. Move to the next slide. Now, as our commitment to the eco pipeline, we believe that we have some services that have been ring-fenced, and all these, we take our commitment to make sure that these ones are all fully going to be available, and contracts only given to Ugandan companies, Ugandan registered entities. And we can, just as you can see up there, we will be having transportation, we'll be having security, we'll be seeking for fuel supplies, we'll be having environmental studies and impact assessments, although this has already taken place. But I know as we move, because we have a phase that will be required decommissioning, still we shall need them. We can move to the next slide. Now, on the provision of Ugandan local goods and services, this is part of our strategy. We much want to maximize on national local content, and in this case, we shall be requiring people to provide prime movers, trailers, mobile workshops, accommodation containers. We shall need lighting towers, among others. So this is where our audience, you need to come in to say, where do I fit in? How can I come and tap into the MLC project for the EACOP? We can move to the next slide. Onto the procurement of the local goods and services. These are the services that will be directly required by us as the local main logistics providers of the project. We will definitely be seeking. Let me say that we also have a pool of subcontractors that we've been working with, whom we did much lanes with content project that we really want to maximize. So basically, our viewers, you need to look and see where you can chip in. So on the histograms that we do have, the upper one is about the procurement of equipment and services, but we're not yet there. That is the dark blue. So right now we are trying to source for subcontractors, source for partners to whom we can be working with. We do have already some that we have been working with through our tender, all the tender processes. Please, this is the time. to get in touch with us. This is the time to make sure that you are registered with National Database, such that with mobilization, definitely this is a period that will be less than a year. We shall be having the recruitments, we shall be doing some procurements, training of the staff that would have brought on board, and then we shall be trying to move on to the phase of the commencement of the project. That is scheduled within a year, and within about less than a year, but we're looking at about next year around 2022 in Q4. That's the target time we think that we are planned with. And then we have the active period that will take about 1.5 years for the project, and then we'll get to a time when we need to demobilize and have the decommissioning of the project where with the tools that we've been using on the various sites. And then underneath, the histogram underneath is probably on the procurement of the services which is going to be all through continuous to the project. The demobilization is at the end in the light blue, but mainly we're going to be having all throughout the project, we shall be procuring the goods and services that are purely produced by Ugandan companies, registered entities that are in Uganda. Next slide. Now, this is the main slide. Our viewers, where you need to chip in and say, am I prepared for the project? Yes. What are the requirements for the project? We've just listed just up. We could see you will need to have the company registered already, and you need to make sure that you really organized and formally with the tax authorities. You need to have a tax certificate. You need to be registered with the Petroleum Authority of Uganda. And then you need to organize your finances, and you need to have bankers with your bank details. You need to have the various licenses. You need to have to confirm to us that you really are Ugandan, or rather you need really a registered entity in Uganda. Definitely you need to provide to us to be registered and having a national ID, because that is the only proof at the moment that we do have to confirm that the person that is probably working with is a Ugandan national. So the national ID is so essential, so we would need it as well. Plus, you need to also have the references for the previous projects that you've handled, or probably even the current. Now, when we get to the lower charts, we have divided it into the procurement process. How is it going to be running? We'll be having the expression of interest, which of course is ongoing as we speak. So you outside there, you need to express your interest to work with us. Send it. We've received so many, and thank you for all those that have expressed interest to work with us. Then definitely we'll go through the evaluation process, which is also still ongoing. It has no time limit, so please do not fear to contact us. Until when the project probably execution date comes in, that's when we probably shall say that, okay, we can have a breathing space, not to receive other, but the process will be continuous. So when we move to the next point, these are the requirements that you do need. Are you registered with the Petroleum Authority of Uganda? Are you registered with the national tax authorities? Those are the essentials that we require. Then to demonstrate to us that you're competent and you have the potential, you need to demonstrate to us and show us that you did have the previous experience, you have some past and present clients that you're handling. Your understanding of the scope that you do need to tender with us will be so essential. So basically, we will be requiring you to share with us this information so that it can help us with the evaluation to take you on board. Next slide. Just as I had said that so much of interest to make sure that we maximize on the national content. What do we mean here is by making sure that at least the project is 99%, or even because as we get to the conclusion of the project, we'll make sure that we are at 100%. The few experts that will come on to train the locals and the other people will try to ensure that we have succession plans to help through to hand over all the project activities before its closure to nationals, to Ugandans. Thank you so much, Martha.
Thank you, Abdul, and thank you, Patrick. So do you have any other messages for the audience in terms of how they can position themselves to participate in the logistics contract, which is a huge multi-million-dollar contract for the project?
What we have learned so far is that it pays to prepare. So I'm glad that Ugandans have woken up to the opportunity and they are getting their houses in order, so they are prepared. Because there is nothing short of transparent process. It's going to be competitive. We've got to get, they are going to compete under our bidding process to make sure that they win their contracts transparently and fairly. And the more they are prepared, the better, because we need people that will maintain the standards. This project is too delicate to leave to chance. Yeah. We want to cover our bases. It's not so big. Many people got excited because it's a huge pipeline, it's a heated pipeline. But the Ugandan side, today we are focusing on the Ugandan side for our side. And it's not that big. So we can't afford any mistake. We've got to really micromanage it and make sure it's done well. The fact that we've got the contract, the main logistics contract, is because we have reach. Some of the goods come from Germany, from Singapore, from France, from Japan. We have strong relationships with the shipping lines, the clearing and forwarding. We have facilities in Mombasa and in Tanzania, so that the goods must be delivered on time, period. You've got a contract, you must fulfill. And that's what we're trying to achieve, to cover all bases so that we mitigate any risks and minimize any unseen areas. So I urge Ugandans to really be prepared, submit, come to us, engage us. The team is ready to talk to whoever comes in and give them as much information and handhold them until they reach the level that, yes, you won a contract. We want to be as transparent as possible, and we're going to make sure that local content means local content.
Absolutely. And I think an important part of your presentation was even the regional commitment Bolloré has, because you'll be traversing along 11 districts in Uganda.
Yep. That it has to be, because we try to localize as much as possible the services that we need in each of the districts as we come along. And the same thing will be happening in Tanzania, where it's also a Bolloré exercise.
Thank you. Thank you, Vina Petroleum Pipeline Engineering Company, CPP, who I believe are also with the EACOP team in Dar. Dong, are you with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
And for our audience, CPP are the pipeline, construction, and an above-ground facilities contractor.
Okay, let's start it. Could you please help me put the PowerPoint slides on the screen? Hi, can you hear me? Yes. Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Distinguished. Okay, let's get started. Distinguished participants, it gives me great pleasure to be here to present our company and our national content plans in Uganda. We, China Petroleum Pipeline Company Limited, abbreviated as CPP, one of the contractors of the EACOP project. Since our establishment in 1973, we have built hundreds of projects in the Middle East, Southeast, Central Asia, and Africa, and has created outstanding achievements in the fields of onshore pipelines, offshore pipelines, oil and gas storage, oil and gas field facilities, LNG processing and receiving terminals, 100,000 kilometers of onshore oil and gas pipelines, 200 kilometers of offshore pipelines, 30 million cubic meters of oil and gas storage tanks, and more than 100. And we will endeavor to obey the national content regulations and to support its development of the oil and gas industry and the potentially related industries in Uganda. Okay, next slide. Next slide, please. Yes. The project pipeline starts from Telanga to the Hoima district of Lake Albert and to the border of Uganda and Tanzania, approximately 390 kilometers in Uganda, with the 24-inch diameter pipe, 2 pump stations, 4 main campsites and pipe yards, as well as correlative mainline block bulbs and electric heat tracing stations. The pipeline has a total construction period of 24 months, a commissioning period of 3 months, and a warranty period of 24 months. Next slide. We contracted the work of pipeline and above-ground installation, which we can call it AGI in short. Engineering includes site design. Procurement includes steel pipes up to 24 inches, valves up to 2 inches, pipe supports, coating and insulation materials, telecommunication instrument bulk materials, civil construction bulk materials, etc. Construction include pipeline construction, temporary compound staging area construction, set preparation, equipment installation, cable and fiber optic cable laying, road construction, etc. Inline electric heat tracing system and IFBE coating plus thermal insulation will be used for the pipe work, which is a distinctive feature of the project. This page shows the schedule for our main activities, assuming the effective date falls on 1st January 2022, and so many of our activities will be implemented immediately after that date, such as management, project control and administration, procurement, construction services for the project, etc. And the construction activities will commence 4 months after the effective date. Okay, next slide. Assuming that the effective date is 1st January 2022, a number of our activities will start, and with them the local recruitment. The horizontal axis of the histogram shows the time in months, and the vertical axis indicates the number of people. The blue bars represent the number of people expected to be recruited locally during the pipeline work, and the orange bars represents the number of people expected to be recruited locally in AGI work. Please note that the figures in the histogram are all estimated based on our schedule, but we certainly recruit as many as possible local employees to join our management, technical, and unskilled team. And the ratio of local employments in the terms will be increased year by year. Additionally, a part of employees will be firstly recruited from communities near the pipeline construction site, of course. Then, with regard to local recruitment, we also set up the recruitment process it shows in the slide. Firstly, in line with the term schedule and its human resource structure, a detailed recruitment plan will be compiled. A recruitment team will be organized. Secondly, job advertisings will be released on mainstream Uganda newspapers and websites, which specifies the positions, requirements, numbers, etc. And a community liaison officer will be recruited in each community along the pipeline. Women will be given priority to help protect the rights of women in the community to work. Thirdly, recruitment team collect and screen the curriculum vitae and shortlist the candidates. Fourthly, 2 or 3 rounds of interviews will be organized according to the candidates' professions and specialties. Run to the candidates is scheduled to prepare. Fifthly, offers will be issued. Employment contracts will be signed with the final qualified candidates and with induction training corresponding to their positions. Okay, next slide. Yeah, during the execution of the project, we empty a variety of positions to local personnel, including but not limited to worker, driver, operator, binder, foreman, HRC engineer, electrician, and welder. We will do our best to recruit locally, and jobs listed may be added or reduced in accordance with the actual demand. And next slide. In addition to human resources, we also require support from vendors in a variety of sectors, including but not limited to office and fuel supply, hotel accommodation, transportation, security, civil work, land surveying, and waste management, and so on. The resources will be provided by local Uganda entities and individuals, unless such resources are not available locally, but we will try our best to explore in Uganda as the promotion to the local. Next slide. As the project starts, tender process will be initiated and advertising will be released to look for above services. All the competent local companies with a PAU registration are entitled to participate in the bid. For local goods and services, we have made a procurement plan which is broadly divided into 3 categories. They are incorporated equipment items, incorporated bulk materials, and pre-commissioning spares, tools, and consumables. The procurement of all goods and services in each category will be carried out in 3 steps. They are preparation of procurement procedure and shortlisting of suppliers, bidding and production, inspection, transportation, and site acceptance. This plan is generally consistent with the project overall schedule, i.e., the project of incorporated equipment items begins on the effective date. The procurement of incorporated bulk materials is planned to coincide with construction activities. The procurement of pre-commissioning spares, tools, and consumables coincides with the pre-commissioning. Next slide. Tender process is shown on screen. Firstly, a tender team will be organized to compile tender documentation complying with the Petroleum National Content Regulations. Secondly, advertise tender information in local mainstream media and websites to invite local companies to participate in the tender. Thirdly, the tender team collect and evaluate bidding documentation according to the tender evaluation criteria, rank the bidders following the principle of fairness and impartiality. Fourthly, issue notice to the bid winner and start contract negotiation. Fifthly, sign contract. Next slide. Our contacts are as follows, include email address, WhatsApp number, and website. You are greatly welcome to cooperate with us. Here is the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Much Dong. That was Dong from CPP, who are the pipeline and above ground installations contractor, and he was talking to us, joining us from Dar es Salaam via Zoom. We'll shortly be joined by the final contractor, who it's a consortium of Schneider Electric and SNF, who are handling the electrical instrumentation and thermal communication package, the EITS, and they'll be joining us from France. And just to recap, we've this morning heard from Wally Parsons, the EPCM contractor. We've heard from CPP, the pipeline construction and AGI facilities contractor. We've heard from Bolloré, the logistics contractor. We also briefly heard from the project on the early civil works package. So these being the main contracts that make up the $4 billion of the pipeline construction. And we also heard in the morning from Martin Tiffin, the managing director of EACOP, who also reminded us that EACOP is a pipeline company to transport oil, but also is a company made up of shareholders of Total Energies, CNOOC, UNOC, and TPDC, being the Tanzanian participant. So I hope Pierre, you're online from Schneider and SNF, and you can take us through the final presentation of the day.
Good morning, everyone. This is Patrick Makarov from Schneider, France. I'm here assisted by 2 of my colleagues, Pierre Imbert and Pravi Munto. I will give the words a bit later during the slides. If you could share on the screen, please, the presentation that we have prepared. Thank you. All right, so my name is Petrica Makarov. I am today representing the consortium of Schneider Electric France and EACOP. The two companies decided to unite power and to provide in common this complex scope of EITS. I will go on the detail, but I would invite kindly the auditorium to visit our web pages. You can see here www.se.com and www.snef.fr, just to see a little bit more of the detail. So both of the companies, they have open offices, permanent establishment in Uganda. So basically, we will be a local company having all the facilities and all the obligations like any other local entity. If we can move forward, please. Now, the scope of our contract consists of a very complex variety of equipment to be delivered and integrated. I will start from the top with the electrical one, so you can see that we have various switchgear, low voltage, medium voltage, high voltage, which is an option, with, of course, UPSs with chargers and everything. Then we have instrumentation and control, where basically it's the complete control of this pipeline, with control room at both ends of the pipe, and all that process, all that intelligence behind it's housed into this equipment that we are to be delivered. Then we have telecommunication and security. This is the part of our partner SNEF, consisting in telecom towers, meteor, CCTV, fiber optic, all kind of optical data to be transported and so on. Everything will be integrated into what is called e-house on our business, or simply a shelter. So we will integrate and then move these modules into the final position in Uganda as well in Tanzania. If we can move to the next one, please. All right, so here we will go a little bit through the detail, not to take too much time. So on the electrical discipline part, basically we are fully responsible for the EPC, for the engineering, procurement, workshop and testing, everything linked to this electrical switchgear that I just mentioned, and particularly focusing on Uganda local market. Basically, we will have to do the custom clearance, the storage, the local logistic for moving the goods up and down. Yeah. Then we will have to install these e-houses, the shelters, what I mean. So for that, we will need local power, manpower. We will need specialized tool, a little bit of lifting equipment, field cable termination and testing, plant commissioning, performance test, and final documentation. For all that, of course, we need specialized local labor, specialized testing tools, and we will ask kindly the participant to submit their interest to a pre-qualification link that we have. My colleague Pierre will detail that a bit later. If we can go to the next slide, please. Can we change to the next slide? Okay, thank you. Instrumentation and control, of course, full EPC on our side. I just detailed a little bit about this PCS system, the plant control and the SCADA and all the data transmission. But basically, with focus on Uganda, we will have to import all of this specialized equipment. So that means logistic support, custom clearance support, local transportation support. This prefabricated buildings equipment, we will have to test. So there will be local testing, meaning specialized manpower, specialized testing tools, and so on. Fiber cable termination, plant commissioning, performance test, final documentation, all that will require a specialist, will require special certified test equipment. So we will ask the local market to support us on that, with, of course, with the normal expression of interest where people can, or companies can attend and participate. For the next slide, please, I will introduce our partner from SNEF, Pravim Unto. Pravim.
Thank you for the introduction, Petrica. I'm sorry, there seems to be a glitch with my video. It's very unfortunate. Good morning, everyone. It's an honor and privilege to join this forum. Just a brief introduction on myself. My name is Praveen Anju. I'm the National Content Manager. We work very closely with Oliver Filnu and his team. Unfortunately, due to the current circumstances, I couldn't be present physically in Uganda. I'm currently sitting in Mauritius. Starting with the presentation, as mentioned earlier, SNEF is the partner of Schneider Electric, and we're responsible for the telecom system portion of the EITS package. SNEF has two registered subsidiaries, both in Uganda and Tanzania. For Uganda, the entity EACOP Uganda will be responsible for the execution of the local portion of the project and will manage the procurement of goods and services related to the Ugandan scope. The telecommunications and security systems will be designed and implemented to provide an integrated infrastructure, which will support all operations, safety, security, maintenance, and administration of the pipeline. In layman terms, this can be considered as the brain part of the pipeline. Before I jump to the list of goods and services and employment opportunities that will be sourced locally, I want to emphasize on the importance of properly understanding the timelines of the project that will be shared in later slides in order not to miss the train. My colleague Pierre will explain in further slides the process of participating in the expression of interest exercise as well as our recruitment process. You will get our contact details through the presentation that will be posted on EACOP's website. I encourage you to register as a vendor in our database so you can receive the invitation for call for tender processes. More information on that from Pierre later. In terms of goods and services, we're expecting procurement of telephony system, CCTV system, data and fiber optics, cabling, entertainment systems, and we're also potentially looking to manufacture locally the telecom masts and CCTV masts, depending on the nature of goods and services that local suppliers may provide. In addition to the statutory documents requested, I also encourage you to send us your company policies, track records, sales experience, certifications, whatever documentation you deem may give an edge to your company. Regarding the local labor force and employment opportunities, again, it is equally important to understand the timeline of the project. As an example, the commissioning engineer applying during the very early stages of the project might not be successful in the application, since commissioning will only start towards the end of the second year into the project. More information on this will be available on the manpower histogram and skill set requirement for Ugandan citizens in later slides presented by Patricia. Coming back to the local labor force, we are looking at employing both skilled and unskilled labor force. I would like to highlight that we're also complying with the community content of the project. I'd like to call it the local content within the national content. As far as possible, we will recruit from the project affected regions, especially when it comes to unskilled labor. We are ensuring that our subcontractors are meeting these obligations as well. As for skilled labor set, another important point that I would like to highlight is the succession plan commitments that we have as a contractor. There's a huge effort to bring competencies from the local industry. Despite all efforts, I have to point out that we will have also international expertise from all around the world because this project is technically demanding. It is important to understand that the standards we want to apply in terms of safety and quality and excellence. As a corporate, we will be bringing people from within SNEF and Schneider Electric who have done this kind of challenges elsewhere. These experts will have the responsibility of transferring the knowledge and expertise to the local technically qualified personnel, which is part of our succession plan commitments. In addition to the above mentioned goods and services, we will also require logistic providers to transport personnel and goods, accommodation, security companies, office supplies, PPE, special tools and consumables, HR and legal services. That is all from my side. I will remain available until the end of the presentation and I would welcome any questions that may arise. In any case, our contact details can be obtained from the presentation that will be shared in EACOP's website. So feel free to reach out if there are any queries. I'm very happy to help. Over to you, Patricia.
Thank you very much, Praveen, for the detailed presentation of SNEF part. Next slide is regarding the project schedule. Of course, this was detailed by the previous speakers, so I will just mention generally that a part of the scope, the procurement, or the part that is interesting for the local market, the procurement will start not earlier than June 2022. So we are currently busy fine-tuning the last details of the scopes of work, and soon we will start launching expression of interest. But again, I highlight that procurement not before June 2022. Of course, companies can access our link for pre-qualification. They can already input their data there. So basically to prepare for what is coming, because of course, on that we will shortlist companies. So preparation is good. Like a previous speaker was speaking, preparation is good. So stay alert, check the EACOP website, check our website, and follow on this expression of interest. On the next part, in regards to the commitments, as you can see, the numbers are quite high. The consortium took a high-level engagement in committing to these high numbers, way above the minimum requirement. So you can see on our side, on contractor side, we are committing to hire 48% in management, 65% in technical, and 100% in others or unskilled, an average of 73%. The numerics are just below, and also you can see the detail on the subcontractor side. If we can move to the next one, please. Yes, in regards to mobilization plan, basically the peak will be in 2023 as expected according to the schedule issue on the project level. Basically in 2022 we will be busy in launching expression of interest in starting the procurement. There will be a lot of engineering in 2022, and then in 2023 we'll go with a lot of fabrication, a lot of manufacturing, and at some point we will start delivering the shelters in the field, getting them ready for installation. 2024 will continue with installation in the field, getting ready for the first oil beginning of 2025. Local hiring will be happening mid of next year. Hiring of direct employees as well hiring of subcontractor. And for that, we can move to the next slide, please, where I will detail a little bit about the recruitment process for direct hiring of people. So there is a very elaborate process like any other corporate when we talk about hiring directly the people, but it's more or less similar with the others that was presented. Basically, there will be a requisition, then a sourcing, and then screening on the market, interviewing and selection process, and then offers will be made, and if a deal is signed, then it will follow with onboarding. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sorry, there was a little interruption on my side, I think. In regards to the hiring process, there's also a web page where people can access if you're going to share this presentation from our side. Unfortunately, here it was a bit small, it was not so visible. Linked to the skill set commitments, there is a breakdown by type of employment, so by management, technical, and others, and unskilled, where you can see the labor that we are planning and the profile that we are planning to do. And you can see that we're looking for specialized labor of all kind. I will not go into the detail. You can see here the amounts and the profiles. We can move to the next one, please. All right. Linked to the reserved Ugandan contracts, we have the same obligation like everyone, and we will follow that ad literam. Basically, we will hire 100% all or everything that is linked to local transportation, security, foods and beverages, hotel, HR, offices, and whatever is linked to offices, and so on, yeah. So we are committed to follow exactly what is required in the country, and our corporate are supporting 100% that approach. If we go to the next one, basically we will enter into the tendering and procurement, and it gives me a great pleasure to introduce my colleague Pierre, who is the Procurement Manager. Pierre?
Yes, good morning, everyone. So I'm Pierre Imbert, Procurement Manager for the EACOP project. And I will introduce briefly the call for tender process, which is very similar to the process presented by the other just before. But just to re-explain and to emphasize on two main steps regarding this call for tender process, we'll have the first step, step one, which is linked to the qualification of any potential vendor for this project, taking into account some key points which are, let's say, mandatory to comply and to go on the step two. So the step one is mainly linked to capacity, capability of the vendors according to the needs that we have, but also focusing on the local registration. The point is very important for us in order to be sure that we entering in a contract or subcontract with a local vendor, which means a company registered in Uganda. So you will have on the next slide a link and a QR code which help you to register into the process. Can you go back on the previous slide, please? So that's the step one in terms of qualification. And after that, if the vendors comply with the different requirements in terms of local registration, in terms of quality aspect, capacity, will go on the step two, which will be the selection of the supplier. And this selection will be based on what we call the request for quotation that we can share with you in terms of price competitiveness, QA/QC, and all, let's say, technical requirements according to the project, according to the main contract that we have. So this is step one. Keep in mind, qualification based on local registration and, let's say, process. Step two will be mainly linked to the project itself and the requirement of the project in terms of quality. And next slide, please. So according to that and according to the contract and the local regulation, we will follow the same process. In terms of advertising, we will put some expression of interest on 2 newspapers and also on the EACOP.com website. On this different way of communication, you will find all the main data in order to give you the opportunity to participate to this call for tender through this what we call open and public link. You will have to register your company. We will review that and we will, let's say, pre-qualify your company in order to proceed to this project with us. Once Schneider will have checked if your company is a local company, you will have to fill a self-assessment. This self-assessment will be mainly focused on capacity, capability, number of people, stuff like that you are able to provide according to the need. We will pre-select some different vendors. This is what we call the long list. And then we will launch the request for quotation, moving on a short list according to price level, to quality aspect, to your way to answer to the request for quotation. In case of major, let's say, local purchase, we will certainly need to perform an on-site audit with our team in order to identify the key requirements in terms of HSE, quality, organization of the company, and so in order to be sure that what we can find on the paper provided before are fully in line and used also on site. So next slide, please. So if you want to participate on those expression of interest, you can scan the QR code on the left side. This QR code will bring you directly into the pre-survey in order to identify and to gather all the paper for your local registration. So you have the QR code, or you have the link directly to the survey below. Like that, you can go directly right now to register your company. You will have also to provide and to upload some document. Like that, it is the first step for us, for Schneider and SNEF, to build our local vendor database in Uganda. You will have some question also around the part where you want to bid, if it is on the telecom part, electrical part, or system part. Into the survey, you will be able to select where you want to participate. That's all for me as a quick presentation about the process, the different steps. Very similar to the other, but we, let's say, emphasize again on local registration, which is one of the key drivers, quality and HSE also.
Thank you, Pierre. So with that, we have concluded our presentation. As a summary, the consortium, Schneider Electric France and SNEF France, is looking forward to get in contact with companies that are highly focusing on safety, on quality, on delivery on time. The process, I hope it's very clear and easy to access. So everyone, I hope, took a photo or access already this link that was presented by my colleague Pierre. Just in case you see the details here, you can email us and present or send a portfolio of your company, and hopefully we can do business together. Our goal will be to hire labor that will stay for the future in the project or specialize in this particular business, and will support EACOP also during the operation and maintenance for the next tens of years, we hope. Thank you. We are open for any questions from the auditorium.
Just for convenience, I put on the chat the web link for the survey. You just have to click on it and start to fill if you want, which will be more convenient for you if you want to move forward.
Thank you. That's it from Schneider and SNEF side.
Thank you very much to the Schneider and SNEF team joining us from France. We're nearing the end of our workshop today, and it's been very interesting to hear lots of different presentations from our contractors. And I'll turn now to Emmanuel Blares, the Project Director in DAR, and Olivier Fonalu, as well, the National Content Manager in DAR, for some closing remarks. Emmanuel and Olivier, are you with us?
Yes, Samantha, we are here.
Yes, Samantha. Thank you. I start with you. Okay. So, as you could see, we are committed to be very transparent and to comply with the regulations. We need people. We will look for goods and services. So please just stay tuned, and you will see the information coming over to you in the next few weeks through our advertising, and we'll relay again all the content of our presentations and the contact details so that people can reach our main contractors and get some more information. Thank you. And now over to Emmanuel.
Yes, thank you, Olivier. And thank you to everybody for having attended this workshop. I know it has not been easy because this online configuration is not the best tool to engage discussion with potential subcontractor. But anyway, the next workshop, we hope that it will be done in a face-to-face mode in Kampala. This being said, I hope that the objective of today's meeting have been met. We wanted to share with you the project description, the project status, where we are going. We wanted to share with you the progress schedule to see exactly what are the coming phase of the project in terms of engineering, procurement, and construction. This is a very important information for the business community. Something important as well is that we wanted to demonstrate to all the Ugandan business community our commitment to the national content. For us, it's a key factor of success of the EACOP project. We would like to thank PAU, UNOC, and TBDC and CNOOC, our partner, for their continuous support on this project, and in particular UNOC and PAU for their support with respect to national content. We hope as well with the provided information today, you know now how to engage on the project. Then don't hesitate to contact us, to contact the EACOP project, to contact the contractor. For that you have now useful information. And I hope as well that with the provided information you know when to engage with EACOP after the information provided on the EACOP schedule. The way forward is that we will put on the website of EACOP all the slides that have been presented today. This could be used obviously for your further information. Then don't hesitate again to contact us and to contact the level 1 contractor if you need further information. Then thank you for your attendance, and see you next time in Kampala in a face-to-face workshop. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you, Olivier. It's been an interesting day here at the EACOP National Supplier Development Workshop. And I think the key takeaways are, as Emmanuel and Olivier said, we've heard from the main contractors, and obviously national content is going to be cascaded down throughout each one of those contracts, where they will procure goods and services in country, where they will subcontract where they can. And it's been an important day to hear about their requirements from contractors and the employment opportunities available. And importantly, also to get an idea of the schedule and when they will move in country into Uganda and begin some of their activities. Because a key objective for us is to enable all the Ugandan companies that can participate to adequately prepare. And in that vein, all of the presentations will be on the EACOP's website, which is www.eacop.com. And as well, you've seen all of the different websites from the main contractors, where you can now take the step to go and register as a vendor and also supply your materials and brochures so that they're well aware of you before they move in country. I hope it's been an interesting day, and as always, EACOP is available to discuss any questions you have, and we are committed to national content in each country and to maximizing the opportunities for Ugandan companies. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
The EACOP will provide business opportunities for the different sectors of the economy involved in the pipeline design, construction, and operation and decommissioning. This will create a trickle-down economic effect, spurring the development of national content. It is expected that casual workers who will be involved in the construction phase of the project will be sourced locally from each district, promoting the development of local capacity to develop other industrial projects in the region. The project will also contribute towards the enhancement of the central corridor between Uganda and Tanzania through the development of new infrastructure, logistics, technology transfer, and the improvement of the livelihoods of East Africans.